Okay, I have a 437-part question, but I'm going to make it as simple as I can. Because, okay, there are certain things that we can't avoid noticing that the effect of is like massive, millions of people dying. And then we find out that those things were false memes, and it doesn't seem to be our responsibility to do anything about that having happened. Nobody that did that is slapped on the hand. They get raises or they get golden parachutes, and that's just the way it is. And that's going to continue unless to me, it seems like we know there is a right and wrong. It's hard to say, being in an avatar, what portion of the larger consciousness system that I am or what my responsibility is here. But there's a point at which I look at the avatars and I think, these are human beings. I don't know how much of them has consciousness that they came with, whether they're being inhabited by something that's learning, but when we have absolutely no compassion toward one another. It's really odd to me, and it does have an effect. I, by default, in the military, interviewed guys coming back from Vietnam. I know if they're not physically shattered, they're psychologically shattered. And those that didn't commit suicide went on to have to deal with it. We're not built to kill, but we're programmed to believe that we should. And you can't do it unless you have a green suit on. And then you can kill millions of people. And it's somehow we have to rationalize it. And then there's cognitive dissonance or every other aspect of the psychology that goes into facilitating something that more and more looks to me like I'm just in a big video game. It's like playing road rash. You kick those guys off their motorcycle. It's fun. I do. And you know they're going to get back up. That's the way this place seems to me. There's something really off. And I know you know that.
Okay. So I'll take it there's a question in there.
There's a question. Okay. How should we look at what we see is completely false? And the result of that falsity is people are going to die. I don't know if anybody's even familiar with what happened in Syria. That's 500,000 people that didn't need to die. Okay, here's the question. At what point are we complicit? At what point should we say, oh, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with that? Or I'm going to do something to try and raise people's awareness so that they can simply respond to right and wrong, or at least acknowledge it, because I'm not even getting a response from people.
So what are nice people like us doing in a place like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What we're here for, what this is all about, is evolving the quality of consciousness. And what that boils down to is being cooperative, caring, compassionate, becoming love. That's how you win this virtual reality game. That's how you level up and get points, is becoming love, getting rid of fear. Those two are equivalent. You get rid of fear, what's left over is love. Okay, caring. So that's why we're here. And from what you're telling us and what everybody knows, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of that love laying around in general, that we haven't been too good at, getting rid of that fear. But if you look at the big picture, look at the way things were 300 years ago, 400 years ago, and you'll find that today is much kinder and much gentler, much more compassionate, and much more forgiving than it was just a few hundred years ago. We have been growing up, but as you say, we've got a long way yet to go. Now, you might want to know, well, where did it come from? Why do we have all this fear? Why do we have such low quality of consciousness? That may be a subject we could explore if you want to. But instead of that, let's talk about, well, what should we do about it? What's our place in it? So we find ourselves in this reality, and the reality is full of nastiness. It's full of greed. It's full of people trying to take advantage of other people. So how do we interact with that? Well, the virtual reality is here as a learning lab. That's first fact. Second is that most everybody here is doing the best they can with what they've got. Yes, even those people who are doing awful and horrible things, they just don't have a very high quality of consciousness. They're doing the best they can with what they came in with, which is what they earned up to this point. If we continue to grow, we will one day absolutely, necessarily get to the point that humanity will have become a kind, gentle place. We will care about each other, and love will be the norm rather than the exception. We will get there because that's where evolution is taking us. And evolution may be slow, right? We've been working on this 200,000 years and we've only gotten that far. It's slow.
Can we speed it up?
Yes, we can speed it up. Exactly. We can. It's slow, but it's relentless. It never stops chugging along. Sometimes it gets set back, but it just keeps chugging forward. So eventually we'll get there. How you save the world is the same thing as how you save yourself. You have to realize that this ugliness in our world is not there kind of, brought in from the outside. It's not there's all us nice people and then there's just these ugly people that mess it up for everybody else. It doesn't work like that. Our world is the way it is because we are the way we are. It is a very accurate representation of the average quality of consciousness, period. So what we see is really what we, the people, we, all the humans, it's what we are. That's the level that we are. When you look around and see all that dysfunction is a reflection of us. So the way you get rid of that is by evolving your own quality. Because evolution of consciousness is a person-by-person thing. People don't all get together and hold hands and evolve. They evolve individually because they start making better choices. It has to come from the inside out. So yes, you can replace that evil dictator. You can replace that nasty CEO that's taking advantage of people. You can replace the people that seem like they're the evildoers, but they will, within a generation or so, be replaced by the very same kind of thing. Different player, different name, different haircut, same MO. And if you look at our history, you'll see that all of the things that, that hurt us today, all of the things that are dysfunctional today have mostly been dysfunctional for as long as we have history. That's because we tend to work on symptoms. That evil dictator and that CEO that's taking advantage of people, if you get rid of them, something else will spawn in its place. Until you change us. Until we, the people, grow up, those bad guys at the top are just symptoms of all the bad guys in the whole population. They're just symptoms of it. And as long as you're working on symptoms, you're not really fixing the problem. You're spending all your attention on, getting rid of this politician, getting rid of that corporation that's spreading poison all over the world. And that's, working on symptoms is okay. It's not like working on symptoms is useless. It makes everybody's life a little better, but realize it's just working on a symptom, and it isn't going to change anything in the long run. It'll just be replaced with somebody else doing the same thing. And it's not that those people are particularly evil or nasty. If you take just a random draw out of the 7.5 billion of us and just reach in and pick one at random and put them in a position of power and authority, you'll find that what you get is pretty much what you've already got.
Like the Milgram experiments.
Yeah, right. Exactly. What you're going to get, what you got, because that's us. That's the way we are. So as we grow up, we help other people grow up. So if we have, less fear, we share that with other people. Other people interact with us. They see that we're not as stressed, that we're not as unhappy, we're not as miserable, and they want to emulate that. They want to be with us. The people that hang around with us feel good about it. And the people that hang around with people who are full of, that are angry and always complaining, nobody wants to be around those people. They're just not nice to hang around. So just by being grown up, you'll help other people grow up. And when enough of us grow up individually, then the rest of the system will fix itself all by itself, because the people in those positions representing the whole system will also be grown up, and they will have compassion rather than greed. They will have caring rather than, how much can I get and how little do I have to give for it. So that's how we do it. We have to fix ourselves. And I know that's in a way disheartening, like, yeah, we all have to fix ourselves. What little contribution can I make? You can make a big contribution, just a single person, because you interact with hundreds of people who interact with hundreds of people. We all belong to a collective consciousness. There's a collective consciousness that has to do with, being, in North America, being a US citizen, or being a Canadian, or being an Englishman or a German. There's a collective consciousness that goes with that. And as we grow up, everybody gets pulled up a little bit. It makes it a little easier for them to grow up. Now, we can't grow them up, we can't pull them up, but we can give them an environment which makes it easy for them to easier to pull themselves up. You see? So we will get there. One day, evolution of consciousness, this will be a lovely place. But we have to grow ourselves up. So if you want to contribute, the maximum contribution you can make is to get rid of your own fear, because that will spread to all the people you know. And that will maximize what you can do. When you return next time, you'll be able to help even more because of what you grew up this time. And it all just builds on itself. So by saving yourself, you end up saving the world. Now, I'm very optimistic that we are going to see a major growth spurt maybe in the next couple of decades. That yes, this growth has been very slow and very steady and goes back a little, down a little bit, then keeps going. And all right, in the last couple of 100 years, it's done a little better. But I think we got to a point where we're going to go up more quickly. And the reason I think that is that today in most of the world, there's lots of people who think virtual reality is a good idea. Now, you may be wondering, what does virtual reality have to do with it? But as people understand that this reality is information-based, then it's just logic that tells them that a virtual reality has to have avatars and has to have players. It's the nature of virtual reality. It also tells them that the players have to live in a different reality frame than the avatars, and that the players have to be non-physical relative to the avatars. And if this is a virtual reality and it's simulated and our bodies are avatars, then the consciousness, the player of that avatar, is non-physical. Okay, now we've gotten to a point where the non-physical is not only real, but it's the real us. It's the players. When we get to that point, it's another logic step to get to the point that consciousness is the computer. Because we have consciousness, the player. A piece of the larger conscious system is configured to be the player and the computer. Because in a virtual reality, the computer and the player have to talk to each other. They're constantly talking to each other. You can't talk like that across reality frames, only within a reality frame. So that reality frame where consciousness is the same frame of the player and the computer. So consciousness is the computer. It's just a logical step. When you get to that point, you have to ask the question, well, why would consciousness create a virtual reality like this? And the only rational explanation of that is because it forwards its own evolution. It's an evolving thing. The system's not a perfect system, it's evolving. And it's a social system. Consciousness shares information, it talks, it responds, it interacts. That's what consciousness does. That creates a social system. Social systems optimize themselves with caring, with cooperation. A social system that cares and cooperates can produce so much more than one that fights and complains and argues and has no trust.
So what does, if you're evolving and you see an element that is de-evolving, but you don't do anything or say anything about that, but you know that that's happening, and then you watch the inevitable results, which are catastrophic. At what point are we individually responsible, or does it take us down with it?
No, we're responsible to do what we can to help out when we can. Okay, so you're responsible when you see things that are going wrong to do something about that if you can. Now, if what you want to do about that actually raises entropy, in other words, if what you do is get angry and get fearful and get mad and start throwing stones and calling names and that sort of thing, that doesn't help. That makes everything worse. That raises entropy. So that isn't the way to help. If what you do to help helps other people see the same picture that you see, that's called education. Now you're helping people see what's wrong.
Well, everyone sees it. I mean, I could name 100 things that you can turn the TV on and you can see it. It's fake. This place is so fake. It's just.
Well, we get shown what people would like us to see, for the most part. But what you can always do about it is talk about it and grow yourself. You may not be able to do anything about it. You know, there are things that are bigger than you are that you just can't reach out and change. And you got to accept that that is the way it is. So you do what you can do, and you know, you have to let the rest go. You have to understand what you can influence and what you can't. You should influence what you can.
Okay, here's the question. I'll finally get to the question. If we look at this scenario where there are things which are in evidence that are definitely wrong, they're lies, maybe if I ask this question, it's just I do not get how we can see those things but not see them. It just doesn't register.
That has to do with belief. People believe what they want to. People believe what makes them feel okay. And part of that belief is just denial. It's easy. People don't want to believe those things, and they just don't. It doesn't matter. You can push the facts in their face, and in their mind, you've made up those facts. Those facts aren't credible. Those facts are, propaganda of some sort. People will believe what they want to believe, and you cannot overcome belief with a rational argument. Belief is not operable with rationality. If somebody's a believer and you come up with rational arguments, say, well, here's why your belief has to be wrong, it'll have no effect on them whatsoever, because they believe it. Belief trumps rationality, trumps facts, trumps reality, it trumps everything. When you get somebody who's a believer, yeah, you can show them, say, well, look at this, don't you see? Don't you see how wrong this is? And they'll just look at you and look through you, and they'll change the subject or go someplace else like it never happened, because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to believe it. So you're talking about belief. We walk around with a lot of fear, and with that fear, we have a lot of belief. But you are responsible to do what you can, but it can't be something that you can't grab people by the shirt and shake them and say, don't you see this? That doesn't help. That doesn't make them see it. But if you see somebody else in need that you can help, well, now you have an obligation to go help them, because you are moral and you do see bigger pictures. So you are responsible to help where you can. So you have responsibility up to the level of your ability to be responsible. But if you're just trapped in your own beliefs, you're still doing the best you can with what you've got. It's just that what you got isn't very much. You've got a shell of beliefs, and that's just not very much. But that's the way most people are, because fear generates beliefs. You generate beliefs to cover up that fear. And you can shake your fist at them and say, "What's the matter with you people? Wake up!" And they'll go, "Huh? Wake up from what?
And
Are you
to
crazy
what?
or something? Everything's fine." Yeah. So that's, change yourself. That's as much as you can do. You can't change a believer's mind. You can't talk them out of it. And if you try to beat it out of them, all you'll do is make it worse. And then you just have to live with that's the way it is. That's the way we are. And go through life with a smile and with some happiness and joy in your life, because you accept that it's that way. I don't mean accept that you like it. I just mean you realize it's that way. You have to accept it. Because if you don't accept it, you're going to be terribly unhappy. You're going to make yourself miserable. You're going to say, "I can't live in this world the way it is." Well, that's all your ego talking. I don't live in a world that's the way I want it. That makes me unhappy. If the world was the way I wanted it, I'd be happy. And so would the world be better, because I know and the world doesn't. That's just ego. So to be miserable about it is ego. You have to say, there it is. Here I am. I'll do what I can. What I can't do, I just have to let be. This evolution thing is slow, but we'll get there. So that's the way. So I run into people all the time that are so distraught over the nastiness in the world. They're so distraught about the pictures of bloated babies floating up on shore someplace that they just are depressed. They can't stand to exist here. It's just too depressing to be part of this. That's their ego. They're all tied up in self-pity. It isn't the way I like it. I'm very unhappy about it. Well, it isn't the way you like it. So, suck it up, cupcake. You know? Here you are. What are you going to do about it? You see? What are you going to do about it? But the plan has to be something that comes up, that ends up after the plan's been executed with lower entropy overall. Something that's more people are happy, more people are full of love, not fewer. Most of the plans you see that we have to do something about it are to go in and smash the things we don't like. Well, all that does is create more of the people who don't like what we do like. And it polarizes. Now you have this group, and then they can fight with each other for a long time, but it doesn't actually solve any of the problems, because the problems aren't what you smashed. You didn't smash the problem. All you smash is a symptom. And smashing a symptom maybe gives temporary relief, but it doesn't fix anything.
I guess if we get to the place that you are talking about, I would probably call it heaven. And it seems to me it will be a boring place. That's not my question, though. Do we hide our true self or consciousness in order to get what we want? Sometimes, not all of us do that, but maybe you are working with somebody, you pretend, and you really, truly don't show all the cards. And another question I have is, there is a conservation of energy. I guess that I have learned in physics. Are there conservation of thoughts? All these things that come to our mind is useless, is going to disappear. Where is it going to go? That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's do the last one first. No, there's no conservation of thoughts. The only thing about thoughts is their value is in whether they lower or raise system entropy. Entropy of the individual and system entropy. If they lower it, then they're valuable and they're contributing. They're part of the solution. If they raise it, then they're part of the problem. So thoughts can be valuable or not valuable. They can be helpful or they can be destructive, but there's no conservation. It's not like if you think of an evil thing, then somebody else has to think of a good thing of exactly the same size and shape. There's nothing that balances thoughts. And yes, people often pretend to be something other than they are. There's often that we live with images. Most people live with images. They have an image of themselves, of who they think they are, and they live that image. Well, when you do that, that is not being authentic. It's not really being who you are. That image is a manipulation to first trick yourself into thinking that that's who you are, and second, to trick others into thinking that that's who you are, that you are your image. And why would somebody want to trick themselves and others? Because that somebody is insecure, because that somebody feels inadequate, because that somebody has fear, and they don't think they're as good as they should be, and that others won't find them as good as they should be, so they have to pretend that they're more than they are. And they're really trying to convince themselves as much as they are anyone else. So yes, that happens all the time. It's called manipulation, and it's not on your way to any place good. But your first comment, that place I talk about, isn't anything at all like heaven. That place is, there is no place like heaven. I was just joking when I talked about you learning to play a harp on a cloud. That was a joke. Anyway, what you do is you contribute, you serve. That's the point, is service, contributing to the solution. And you work on it, and you continue to work on it, and you continue to work on it. And when it's really, really good, and you've grown up a lot, and you've got rid of your fear, you don't have an image anymore, you're authentic, and you are just you, and you find joy and happiness and satisfaction in your life. Well, you might call that heaven, but that's just the result of good choices. That's just making good, positive, low entropy choices. And that's the way your life will be as long as you make those choices. So as long as you make good choices, and those good choices are caring, they're about other. How can I help? Not what can I get? Those sorts of things. How can I be of service? How can I help you do what you need to do? That's what makes people happy. It's what they can give, not what they can get. You can get and get and get and get, and you still be miserable. You give and give and give, and you're going to be happy. It's just the nature of consciousness. It's the way we are, because the giving is the low entropy solution, and the getting isn't. So yes, it's, MBT is an odd thing. It's all about science, and it's not about science at all. It's all about science in the sense that MBT principles of consciousness can derive quantum mechanics and relativity and answer all those paradoxes that aren't answerable, like why is C a constant, and why particles rearrange themselves on a screen and make distributions when they really shouldn't do that. It answers all those questions, so then it looks like physics. But the most important thing about this theory isn't the physics. It's the love. It's the caring. The real message is that what we're here to do is evolve the quality of our consciousness. And if we do that, we've kind of optimized our life. So that's really a key message. It's about growing up. To me, even though I'm a physicist, that's the bigger part of the message. That's the more important part. The physics is nice. It's nice because I think it's going to be the thing that leads us to that little increase in growth. I think it's going to be the physicists that are going to lead that, and not because they want to, but because they do it in spite of themselves. They probably don't want to, but they're going to do it anyway, because as they call this world virtual, that just has the logical consequences of saying that there's something else larger than us that's non-physical that is more significant. That's the superset, and we're the subset. So that takes a whole lot of wind out of ego, just to know that fact. And then when you understand its consciousness, and the way consciousness optimizes is through caring and compassion, because that's the low entropy connection, and I could spend a lot of time saying why that's logical, but it is, then that gives people something to grab hold of. And right now, the time is perfect. For the first time in the history of human beings, the time is perfect where all the tools we need have come into place to make a big step forward. Everything we need is now there, and it's never been there before. So we are poised for an opportunity to take some big growth steps. Whether we do or not, well, that's free will. We don't know how that'll work out, but we have that opportunity to take some growth steps. And it'll be the physicists that get that ball rolling downhill. And once it starts rolling, I don't think it'll be able to pull it back. I think we'll end up with some major growth. So, and I think physics is the way. Virtual reality is the concept. Because as this gentleman said, everybody's aware that this place is a tough place to live. Everybody's aware that there's a lot of dysfunction. Everybody's aware that there's a lot of meanness, a lot of greed. And most everybody, and I make most of us, all 7.5 billion of us, the biggest percentage of us, if you ask people, just ask people, is life really perfect the way it is, or do you think things could be improved here? You know, almost everybody says, no, it really sucks here. It needs to be improved a lot. There's a lot of dysfunction, but they don't know what to do about it. So instead, they stick their head in the sand and say, nothing's wrong here, move along, you know. It's an old Jedi trick. They just deny, like you say, they deny. They see all the dysfunction, turn around and say, well, you know, what can I do about it? It's the way it is. Live with it. Or they deny it's even there because they don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to fix it. But if they have a way to fix it, if they have a reason and a point for their existence that fixes it, and if they grow up, it doesn't matter what system you have. It doesn't matter whether you have a government that's, you know, socialist, communist, or capitalist. If the people in that system are grown up and low entropy, whatever that system was, it'll turn into just the right system to support those people in a wonderful way. You see, our things that are wrong will fix themselves if the people fix themselves. And there isn't any other way to get it fixed permanently except by fixing the people. Not fixing them, but fixing ourselves. If they fix themselves one at a time, it's the only way to get there. If you don't do that, all you're going to do is swap one dictator for another. You're just going to be swapping the deck chairs around on the Titanic as it sinks, and it's not going to make any difference. So it's the only way. We won't get there any other way except for us to grow up, so why not start now? You know, if you grow up now, next time you'll have a head start. It'll be easier next time. So why not be part of the solution rather than part of the problem? And we have all the stuff we need. We've got the internet that gives us communications worldwide. We've got science that's about to declare virtual reality a real thing. We've got logic that takes that declaration and turns it into love is the answer. And we have a whole population on the planet desperate for good news and for a way of thinking, for a way of seeing the world, for a philosophy that works for everybody, not just works for some people and not others. And this is a philosophy that is totally inclusive with absolutely nothing to believe. Matter of fact, belief is the enemy. You see? So, there's hope. Just have to do our part, grow ourselves up. There's nothing more that you can do than that.
Growing ourselves up, should we just talk about it and how exciting it is growing ourselves up? I mean, people want to take action, so we're here, so we are growing ourselves up. So in the world, being is, you know, a reflection of ourselves growing up, but what is the action in the face of this turmoil and this chaos?
Well, first well, I guess I ought to repeat that question. All right, sounds good. Now what are we going to do about it? Yeah, that's a left brain interpretation. Well, it's not a matter of just talking about it, because that's just intellectual. And if all we do is talk about it on an intellectual level, nothing much will change. That's not growing up. That's just pretending to grow up. It's another one of these things where we have an image of ourselves as growing up, but not really growing up. We have to be it. We really have to be it, not talk about it. I mean, we can talk about it, but that's not where the action is. The action is being it. And when you be it, your whole life will change. You will change. You will be different. All your relationships will change. Everything in your life will improve when you do that. And that will share that improvement with a lot of other people, who will then share their improvement with a lot of other people. So just by being it, you don't have to do anything more than that. That by itself will do it. Just being it, being a good example, caring about people, that will do it. Now, if you want to, get some placards and go have a demonstration someplace to help, decrease bad, terrible symptoms, fine, go do that. But only do it from a position of being part of the solution, not from a position of making the problem worse. Because as soon as you go outside of a system and come back and attack the system and tell them how wrong they are, all you're going to do is make that system worse. You're not going to make it better. They're going to double down on their dysfunction, and now you just have a fight going, and it's not going to go anywhere. You work much better as an insider than you do as an outsider. When you become an outsider, you really have a hard time changing what's on the inside, unless you're so powerful that you can just overrun it. Then you can change it. But that hardly ever happens. So you're better to stay inside it, change yourself, which will help change it. You're a force of change. Don't drop out, drop in. Love, enjoy, have fun, and that will save the world. There's no other way to do it. It's not like there's a shortcut that you can take. You can't get there any other way.
My question's about NDEs, but I probably need to set it up first. Years ago, I had a dream, a terrible dream, that one of my daughters was going to be killed. And then I've had nightmares before, but this one I just couldn't shake. Years later, 11 years later, it actually happened. And as if to let me know there was no mistake about the dream, the last day I saw her alive, I had a premonition of how she was going to die, and it came to pass exactly the way the premonition was. And at the time, I considered myself a Christian. I was sure God gave me that dream, but I just couldn't imagine why He'd give me a dream I couldn't change. But to try to understand more about it, I started looking into near-death experiences. And it just so happened there was a show on Lifetime called I Survived Beyond the Grave and Back, and it went into all these near-death experiences, interviewing the actual people that were part of it, the doctors, everybody that witnessed it, so you could get a clear picture of what happened. The thing that I noticed was that practically everyone had a similar experience, but the differences seemed to be based more on their beliefs than anything else. But then there were those that had the hell experience. And it didn't seem like they had any different beliefs than the others. It just seemed like in their experience, they thought they were going to hell until it seemed like at the last minute they were rescued. So my question is, why would some people have that experience unless it's their beliefs playing out, or unless maybe it's the LCS thinking that this is what they need to wake them up, or maybe it's a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's mostly the former, but some of the latter. It's mostly what they bring to it, is what they find, what they're afraid of. And everybody doesn't know what they're afraid of. Well, most of your fears are down below where your intellect is. So it's just, they may not talk about it, and it may not come out in an interview, but if they have some fears about going to hell because they haven't been little angels, then that fear can come up as that reality. So it's mostly them, but sometimes the system and NDEs can give people just something that they need, something that will help them grow up.
The thing that has really helped me as I've learned to understand MBT is now I look at it different. Now she's on her new adventure. She's on her next adventure, and it's a lot easier for me to look at it that way.
Sure. Well, that's one of the things that understanding MBT, and particularly having a lot of experience in the out-of-body, will do for you. You realize that death is no big deal. It's just another part of your existence. And the fear of death then goes away. You know, you don't have to be afraid of death because you recycle. It's not that big thing. And if your loved ones die, well, it's the same thing. They're just moving on. They're going on to a different, another opportunity, another set of experiences, and there'll be another set after that. And you can just feel fortunate that you got to spend that time with them while they were here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you feel that, and now it becomes a positive thing rather than I'm full of self-pity because I don't have what I want, which is, my loved one back. But wow, it was really good knowing that person, and the time I spent with them and interacted with them was wonderful. I'm glad I didn't miss that, and I hope they have a nice time, and a good next experience. So it's all very positive. There's nothing really that negative about death, and that's a hard thing for most people to get over, to see that death is a natural part of our process.
Well, that's probably the biggest thing, though, that MBT has done for me is before my daughter died, I was a happy-go-lucky kind of person. MBT gave me that back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, he had the dream about his daughter, and he had it much earlier, and then again just before her death. That was the LCS telling him that reality isn't just this physical thing, that reality is bigger. It helped him understand that there's a bigger dimension to this. So when it actually did happen, he could deal with it, because he realized it wasn't just this little picture that here she is, she's alive, now she's dead and gone, and that's the end of it. He knew that she was just moving on because he was aware of a bigger reality. So in a way, you'd think, well, that was kind of mean, to let him see that. But no, the meaner thing to do would just to spring it on him when he's not in any position to deal with it, when he has nothing, no tools to deal with it with. So that was giving him the tools so that he could deal with it appropriately. So that was the value in it, and that's why, he got that, because the system thought that that would be a good trigger for him to learn. So evidently this event had a high probability for some time. Who knows? Maybe this girl had plans to interact, to take incarnations with other friends of hers at one time, and now was the time to go join that. Otherwise, she'd be 70 years old when they were all, 6 years old. She needed to go join them now. Who knows? May have been part of some sort of plan of hers. And now when she gets there, she says, all right, I'm here. Now we're ready to go with the plan. Let's go. It may have been a very positive thing for her. So the thing is, don't try to judge it. Just say it is what it is, and it's okay.
Hello, Tom. Quite a privilege here to talk to you. I've been watching you, studying you for 10 years, and this is an incredible experience. I got two quick questions here, hopefully. One is, we're talking about evolving in this physical reality. And for me, and there's a couple other people here I've talked to, so I don't feel quite alone, that I feel that this is the first time I've ever been on this planet. I have reasons to believe that. Everything from I've gone OBE to I've had QHHT, I've done the somnambulistic level of hypnosis several times. I've never been here according to this deep hypnosis. My intuition says I haven't. I can channel, and all that confirms that I've never been here. I don't really dwell on it. In other words, to find out where this other reality is, but I do know that I'm not really from here. This is my first experience, so I don't know if you've had anybody else come in and share that with you. You did mention earlier that we can evolve in other realities.
Sure.
So I thought that was, I like that. I just have never heard you say that.
Yeah.
The second thing is what I have trouble with, it's kind of connected, but maybe a little off, with the projection of the reality. I know several of your videos, your books say, it's got to be outside. It has to be outside because we're here. This is the reality. So common sense tells us it's out here. And my instincts tells me it's both, and I just wanted you to comment on that. Also, the reason I say it's both and it's coming from us is because once I started to understand entanglement in this faster than the speed of light, I really believe that the LCS is communicating somewhere, even though it's outside this reality. I believe it's communicating to us, and not all the time, but on sometimes when we need it, by some principle of entanglement. And I also get the idea entanglement would be a theory of science within our sandbox. The rules, the algorithms, I get that, but I feel in my heart there's some kind of entanglement going on between the LCS coming right into this dimension and back and forth. So I don't know if any of that made sense, but.
Okay, entanglement as a metaphor, I would agree with you. There's lots of entanglement between us and the LCS, and it does communicate with us all the time. But entanglement, the physics phenomena, no, because that's a VR thing. That's a virtual reality attribute. It requires space, and there is no space in consciousness. Consciousness isn't anywhere. Consciousness is non-physical. Consciousness is meaning, significance, importance of the message. What does the message mean? Okay, now data is a physical thing that you can send from one person to another, but you send it to another consciousness, and that consciousness can look at the data and interpret that data into meaning. But the information is the meaning, not the data. The little dots of ink on the page is not the meaning, it's just the data. It takes consciousness to have information. Information is non-physical. Meaning doesn't have any weight, doesn't take up any space. It's not a physical thing, it's a non-physical thing. So an information system is a non-physical thing. Doesn't take up space, doesn't have weight, it's just understanding, it's meaning. So if you want to think of this whole thing as just one big mind, then you can think of it as just one big mind, and we're just a subset of that mind. And there isn't any, even when we think of mind, we spread it out. We think of like this brain, and we have different parts and lobes and things. That's because we're used to thinking in terms of this physical reality. We tend to make things into piece parts, and we tend to give them their own space because no two things can occupy the same space. We learned that. All of that is about the virtual reality. It's not about the consciousness system. It's in non-physical. It's a non-physical system. So our attributes of physical space don't apply to it, and our attributes of the rule set here that's physics don't really apply to it. But it's absolutely true that we are in communication with it all the time, and that we are entangled with it in the sense that we're part of it, and it's us. We belong. Entanglement is about these two things are actually one thing. That's what entanglement is about. These two things look like to us two separate things in space. One's over here and one's over here. But you have to see it as it's not two things. It's one thing. That's why when you flip this spin, you flip the other spin, because it's just one thing. It's like a long board. You turn one end of the board over, the other end of the board just turns over too. You don't have to then walk down and turn the other end of the board over. It just, because it's one thing. Well, that's how you view entanglement. It's a system that makes up a single thing. It's just spread out in two locations, but it's all part of the same thing. So yes, we're all part of the same thing. There's a lot of metaphors here that work pretty well with the entanglement as a metaphor, with consciousness and us. But if you turn that into the physical entanglement that has to do with the conservation of momentum and the conservation of energy and that sort of thing, conservation of spin and conservation of polarization, all these other attributes are entangled when there's a conservation law and you have a particle that becomes two particles. So we had one particle here and bam, they blow apart and you got two particles. Well, you've got all these conservation laws that say whatever the momentum and energy was of this particle when it was just one has to also be the same now, conservation of energy, when you have two particles, you see? So that's why if this particle's standing still, though the particles will leave it, the two particles that come will leave it going exactly opposite each other because now their momentum's canceled because they're in the opposite direction. So the total momentum's still zero. See what I mean?
Yes.
So that's the conservation law. And when you have a conservation law, then that means if I do something over here, I need to do the same over there. It's a conservation, save the spin.
So it's okay as a metaphor. I see it. It's okay.
So it's good as a metaphor. It's not good as a physical thing.
Have you had any other people? You
Yes.
must have people that
Yeah, I've had people that's not,
haven't been on this planet before.
that's not that rare. I have a fair number of people who feel like they've never been here before. Some of them feel even to the point that they just don't belong here. It's like they ended up in the wrong place. What am I doing here? I just don't feel like this is my home. I'm an outsider here. And there's probably more of those, but it's a similar kind of thing. And that's understandable enough. You can incarnate to different reality systems. There's nothing in the system that will abrogate your free will. You have free will, and if you say, no, I don't want to go there anymore, I want to try some other game, I'm tired of that game, nobody's going to force you to do anything. You can say, I don't want to get in any game. I just want to sit here in this chair and twiddle my thumbs. Fine, here's a chair, go twiddle. The system isn't going to push you or pressure you or do anything else. You have free will. You don't have to incarnate. But twiddling your thumbs eventually gets really boring. And you want to get back in the game and you want to grow and you want to be more and you realize you're only partway done. You're not finished yet. So you want to get back in the game. So boredom comes quickly and then you go knock on the door and say, hey, I'm ready. I want to go again. That's just the way it works, yeah. And you have this innate thing in you that wants to improve yourself, that wants to grow, that wants to flourish. And that's an innate part of you being consciousness. So that's why you just can't sit and twiddle your thumbs for so long, because there's something in there eating at you saying, I'm wasting time. I need to go do something that's important, not sit here and twiddle my thumbs. So it doesn't take long at all before the ones that say, I'm not going back to that hellhole. No way, that was a horrible experience. It doesn't take long before they're knocking on the door saying, I'm ready. So they do come back anyway, no matter what they tell you when they're here. They turn around and come back anyhow.
Hi, Tom. I want to know, some time ago, and I forgot whether it was a live session or it was on a YouTube video, you were talking about people having out-of-body experience, or they go to another reality, either in lucid dream or in meditation. And you said something that stayed with me for a while, and I don't know why this thought kept coming back to me. So maybe there is a reason why this thought you're saying this keeps coming back to me. You said something like, in reality, people are not going out of their body; they're going out of their mind. What does that really mean?
Well, it's got two meanings. One, it's funny, right? Going out of your mind.
Right, I got that one. I got that part.
But two, it's more accurate. There's nothing in your body. When you play your elf in World of Warcraft, do you live in your elf's body? No. You're outside, right? You don't live in your elf's body. That's silly. The elf is just a drawing on a screen. That's all. It's just eye candy to let you see how things happen and how things interact. That's the way our avatar is. It's just eye candy for us to see the results of what it is we do and the decisions that we make. Okay? So you're not in your body. That's not where consciousness lives. The brain does not create consciousness. It's a virtual brain. It doesn't even exist unless somebody opens up your head, and then it's rendered. When your head gets open, the brain gets rendered. So the brain surgeon can work on something. They couldn't open up your head and there was a black hole in there, or a deep vacuum or something. There has to be something in there that the system has to render, and it's a brain, according to the rule set. That's what's going to be there. That's what evolved. But we are consciousness, just like the player of World of Warcraft. We're consciousness. We're not inside the elf. We're outside the elf. So unfortunately, Bob Monroe coined that phrase, an out-of-body experience, because it sounds kind of cool to say an ooby. Ooby, it's a nice ring to it. So that worked and it stuck, but it's not an out-of-body experience. The reason we think it is because when we log on with a subset of our individuated unit of consciousness. That individuated unit of consciousness puts in it cordons off a part of itself. Okay. And when it does that, it only cordons off a part that represents its quality of consciousness. Not an intellectual part, just the part of its being level. Just the being level part. And it takes that part, and that part then logs on to an avatar, just like you log on to your elf. And because that part has no experience coming in, because experience wasn't part of it, it was just the being level part that was the quality part, no experience. So the first experience that it remembers is the experience of that avatar. It's totally immersed. Every experience it ever had that it can ever remember is the experience of that avatar. It grows up with that avatar. It's a baby with that avatar, and an adolescent and an adult with that avatar. It believes it is that avatar. It's certain that it is that avatar. But it isn't, you see. That's the total immersion. But then you grow up and realize that, I'm not really that avatar. I'm consciousness. I'm the choice maker. This is a virtual reality. And the only good reason for coming to that conclusion is that it solves a lot of problems. It covers a lot of data points we have that now are not understood. Makes a lot of sense. That's the only reason. The only thing that makes a model a good model is whether or not it works. It's how well it works. There's nothing intrinsically good about any model except how much of the data, how much of the experiential data that we have does it cover? Does it help us understand? That's the only thing that makes a model a good model. So this virtual reality model helps us understand a whole lot of things about our life and about ourselves and about physics and everything else. Then it's a pretty good model, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means that so far it seems to be a pretty good model. There may be better models come up later. Who knows? It's just a model. Use it and get what out of it you can. That's the idea. It's not something to believe in. Believing in it will just get you off track. It's something you can experience. See if it works for you. So anyway, that's why I say that going out of body is just unfortunate in its term, because now there are thousands of people all over this planet who are lying in bed like this going, not because they have a twitch, but because they're trying to roll out of body like Bob Monroe did. And they not only want to roll out of body, some of them will want to lift up their arm and then kind of look at it to see if it's a real arm or a out-of-body arm. And sometimes they have a rope and they want to climb up the rope out of their body, pull themselves up out of their body, and it just goes on and on and on. There's hundreds of these metaphors that people have learned to get out of their body. Sometimes they blow themselves up like a balloon and float out of their body, Just lots of things. They're all metaphors to focus their intent on what it is they're trying to do. They're all metaphors. So trying to come up with metaphors to get you out of your body when really you're not in your body, you see, is problematical, and it doesn't lead to a lot of success. It leads to some success for people who really get into those metaphors, but a lot of people just don't find much success in that because it's not really what's going on. You're already not in your body. You're consciousness. So getting out of your mind is a lot more accurate. But that also has another meaning in our culture of going out of your mind, which has something to do with insanity. And that then makes it not such a good phrase for us to use. But it is more accurate. So that's the point. All this work, how do I go out of body? What are the techniques should I use? You don't need any techniques. All you do is let go of this data stream, grab onto another data stream, and there you are. I mean, it's that simple, and it takes tenths of seconds to do it. It doesn't require any process at all. But in order to do that, you have to get rid of a lot of beliefs. And one of those beliefs is that somehow you got to get out of your body. That's a belief, that you're in here someplace and you got to get out. And you believe that because all of your experience has been the experience of this body. So it's a natural thing to believe. And it's a hard thing to not believe. But once you don't believe it, it's real easy to pick up some other data stream. But you'll find beliefs aren't that easy to walk away from. You can't just stop believing something because you don't want to anymore. Belief is down here at the core.